Hello. Today I'm going to get to talk to you guys about the process of directing a stage show, particularly a musical, which is something that I'm really excited to talk about because I have directed a lot of shows and it's just not something that a lot of people may know about or have ever done before. So, to begin, we're going to talk about the three main points of what directing a show can be broken down into. And those are beginning with an initial concept, developing your creative aspirations, and then finally taking it to the public and working with your actors. So to begin, a director has to get an initial concept going. That first comes with picking a show. There are a lot of ways that one can pick a show. You can apply for royalties through different publishing companies, and if a play is 100 years old or older, it is actually royalty-free. And so shows like Hamlet or Midsummer Night's Dream, which are all done by Shakespeare, can be taken and adapted in any way entirely without royalty. Other shows that are a lot more modern, things like maybe Hairspray or Wicked, things that you might have heard about as in a more modern time, those can run with a very high royalty. And if shows are being done on Broadway or on a Broadway tour at the time, it's really hard to get approval to be able to do those kinds of shows. So picking a show is the beginning. That's what you got to go with. And then you need to pick your venue. I actually have done a lot of shows where the venues are either in a community theater setting, in a high school sort of setting, where it's that proscenium arch type of style that you would think of when you normally think of theater. However, I have done a lot of shows too where it was like Shakespeare in the Park, where there is no theater and you're creating your own sort of space. And in my opinion, that's the way theater should be. You create it and you tell a story regardless of what kind of a venue you're in. But you need to pick the venue that's right for you and that's right for your show. The next thing that you need to consider is your budget. If you're going to pay royalties, that is a huge chunk of your budget right there. Also, you're going to have to start paying for the building materials for your sets, your costumes, those kinds of things. It's really nice to also consider whether or not you're going to pay your production crew, and you just have to kind of write everything out and make a statement that would be your budget and go from there. If you're working for a community theater, you can apply and they will usually use grant money or something like that to give you money and pay for your budget, and that's a nice way to go. But also, if you are going to just put on your own show on your own, then you need to know what kind of budget you're going to have to come up with out of your own pocket, or if you're going to try and attempt to do a show budget-free. I've done all of the above. I can't necessarily say that one is better than the other, because if you're trying to do things on a very low budget, you have to be more creative, and sometimes that comes up with a cooler show. Next, directors are going to start to focus on their creative aspirations. And your creative aspirations have to stick to royalty, which will tell you the rules of what you're actually allowed to do with a show that someone else has written, unless you've written it yourself or it's royalty-free. And also to stay within your budget. To design a glorious set with this huge amount of lighting and things like that might cut way into your budget. So your creative aspirations have to fit within those realms. So, as a director, you've picked your show, you know where your venue is going to be, so now it's time to design your set. Set designing can go from just coloring out on a piece of paper. I personally like to take a cardboard box and cut it out and build three-dimensional designs of what my sets will be so my actors can see that. Then you also need to go through your script and make a props list. This will help you to know what you already have and what you need to find and what you might need to purchase. Then you talk about costuming and makeup. If you're doing a more modern show, oftentimes you can rely on your actors to provide costuming, because a lot of people have things in their own closets that they don't realize could be costumes. And if not, are you going to have to make something? Are you going to have to rent something? Or are you going to have to find something? And again, I'm a big fan of the low budget area because you can take a lot of things from thrift stores and adapt them and change them with a lot of creativity and sewing and make them look like something entirely different. Finally, directors get ready to work with the public. So you got your show, you got your venue, you've got all of your creative design ready to go. Now you need to go to the press. And what you're going to do is you're going to make a release for auditions. And you're going to set up when auditions are going to be and what people need to prepare when they show up for auditions. You're also going to list how big your cast is going to be and what you're looking for. How many men, how many women, what kind of age ranges you're looking at. Once you come to auditions, especially for musicals, are usually set into 3 parts. You will begin, if you're a good director, you're going to begin with singing, because that will greatly narrow down who you're really zoning in on and paying attention to in the audition process. So you can usually start by either having somebody come with a prepared song to sing, or you can teach something from the show there and listen to what they would sound like doing the music from the show that you're about to produce. If you have publicized your auditions in enough advance and it's a popular enough show, oftentimes people will show up knowing all the songs from the show. For example, I did Rent last spring, and I actually auditioned for that. I didn't direct it. And they had everybody sing the song Seasons of Love, which is a very popular song from Rent. So anybody who actually knew what Rent was and showed up to auditions pretty much knew the song before they got there. After singing, everybody moves on and does dance. And that's whenever you can really kind of look at those singers that were pretty good and see if they've got the moves and the rhythm that they might need to do different dance. If your show contains things like tap that might be a little bit harder, you would also ask at that time to maybe show any tap moves that people know, or ask on their audition sheets and forms what history they have with different styles of dance. Generally speaking, though, you would use a song from the show, have it choreographed just enough that you can get a little snippet of how well people can catch on to something and how well they can move, and have them audition that way. The third portion of auditions is usually reading from the script. As a director, before auditions begin, you will need to take and divide up your script and decide how many different scenes you want people to read from that would give a nice picture of who you want to see standing next to each other on stage. For example, let's say you have love interest characters. You're going to want to pick something that's a very dynamic piece from the show, maybe just a page, 2 pages at most of the script, and you would call up some actors who you're kind of looking at for those roles and see what they look like side by side to read that in front of you. After the audition process, different directors can announce the casting differently. Oftentimes what I will do is I call people and ask them if they will accept a role, and then we will set up some sort of an email account, and we will email everybody, regardless of whether they got cast or not, to let them know either congratulations, here's your first read through, or thank you so much for your time, please don't be disheartened and come out for the next one. We appreciate your time in auditioning. So after the auditions are done and you have your cast and you show them all of your set designs and your creative designs, what you need to do as a director is have a scene breakdown, because you will need that to set a rehearsal schedule. You're going to go through every scene, Act 1, Scene 1, Act 1, Scene 2, all the way through the entire show, and you're going to list what characters are in those scenes, what music numbers are in those scenes, and often the location of where those scenes are listed. And that way you can say, okay, Monday, August 15th, or something like that. We are going to run Act 1, Scene 1 through Scene 4. So then everybody can look at that breakdown and say, am I in those scenes? Okay, I need to be planning on being there for rehearsal that night. As the rehearsal process continues, you might have nights where you just focus on music, or you just focus on dance rather than all of the things. But as it gets more and more progressed towards showtime, you're going to start bringing everybody in. You're going to start running Act 1 and then Act 2 every night. Act 1 and then Act 2. And then you're going to start doing the whole show every night. So the full cast is going to need to be there. And then you're starting to bring in your tech crew, who you've previously picked. So you're going to add in lighting. You're going to add in sound. You're going to bring in the band. All of those different things. Eventually, the last week is usually called Tech Week. And during Tech Week, people are running costumes. They're working with props. They're also adding in the lighting component, and they're working with their microphones. right before showtime is also your big press and media time. I personally, as a director, prefer to go and send my lead actors out for press releases. So if they're going to go and be on the local news or pictures in the newspaper or anything like that, I want them to be the focus of what we're publicizing rather than myself, even though it's my creative design. At the end of Tech Week, you have opening night, and you then get to sit back as the director and watch everything kind of unfold. You get to hear the audience laugh at the funny parts. You get to hear them gasp at the, oh my goodness parts. And being a director doesn't give you a lot of attention in the same way that being the lead in a show is going to. But it's my personal favorite role to have because you get the feeling of watching everything and knowing that everything that the audience is enjoying is something that you created. Finally, you end with strike. Strike happens after the show closes. That's when you tear down the set, you send everybody home with all their belongings, you return your props, you wash your costumes, all of that kind of thing, and it breaks down. As a closer today, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and shamelessly publicize the next show that I'm getting ready to do, which is Heathers the Musical. I am on the directing staff for Joplin Little Theater, and this is based on the 1980s movie. Mature content, warning, but it is really fun. It's very dark humor, and it's a really popular musical right now. So auditions for that are going to be at Joplin Little Theater, August 7th and 8th at 7 o'clock. Thank you so much for your time. I hope you enjoyed hearing about what it takes to direct a play.